be awesome when you come. So this is last lecture. This happens every year in Hillcrest. It's become quite a tradition, quite an awesome tradition, because we invite professors who we think have wonderful things to say to come talk to Hillcrest and the HRC and honor students. So to continue that tradition, Mike Ellerbrock is here. I had him last year I was a student in his macroeconomics class, and that has been the best class I've taken at Tech yet. Not specifically because I like economics, but because I love Mike. So hopefully you all will totally see that today, because he's so cool. And just a note, this morning he was in Virginia Beach, and he drove all the way back here today to come talk to us, and just got back. So a huge thank you.
I think I'm here.
Yeah. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And there's cookies and lemonade in the back. You found those already, but continue to take advantage of them afterwards.
It's wonderful to be with you. Absolutely. Call me Mike, and let's chat. Actually, you get 2 for 1 tonight. Paige asked me to share with y'all an actual last lecture by Edwin Peterson, who, when he retired at University of Pittsburgh, after teaching English there for 40 years, he was so beloved by the student body that they invited him to give a convocation address to the whole campus. And Paige and I would like to share that with you, and then I'll be happy to share with you some of my own last lecture sorts of thoughts, even though it's a little bit artificial to give a last lecture when it's really not my last lecture. You know, what, who knows how we will feel and what we might say when that day comes, and we, after 3 decades, say goodbye to family and friends. But I have thought about it. I have thought about it, and I'll tell you some of the reasons why I have thought about it. Okay, first of all, Edwin Peterson. He says to the students at Pitt, he says 10 things. He titles his convocation address, "Why Don't Students See Orion?" And he makes 10 points, and he calls them notions, okay? This was published in the Ag Sciences Review. Notion number 1, hey, come in, Amber. Often, this is an actual last lecture from Edwin Peterson, who taught English, who taught English at Pitt for 40 years. He was so beloved that the student body asked him to give a farewell convocation address to the whole campus. How are you, Will? Good. Good. I'm Mike. Notion number 1, often I am shocked to realize that many of my students never see the heavens. They live in cities or in heavily populated suburbs, and the street lights blind them to the stars. Come in, come in.
Thank you.
Mention Orion to most students, and they look at you in bewilderment. How are you?
Great.
Come on, Maria, right here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Mike.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah. You need lemonade to go with that. They have read about the Great Dipper, some of them, but they have never lain on top of a hill and watched the constellation move about the North Star. Strange world that wants to put a man on the moon but cannot look at the stars. First of all, I know I'm preaching to the choir tonight, okay? He's speaking to, come in, folks, come in, come in, come in. Come here, we got chairs, we got chairs, we got chairs, come on.
I might have to leave early.
Oh, okay, okay. Come up here and sit down, man. He's speaking to the whole student body, right? Not the honor students. How are you? How are you? I'm Mike. Yeah, good to meet you. Notion number 2. Even after 40 years, I am still puzzled by the advice given to entering freshmen who have good high school records in writing. At almost every university, the advice is the same. According to your grades, Miss Freshman, you must write very well. Therefore, you don't need any more work in composition. We will put you instead into a literature class. But if the student has a good record in physics, the advisor says, according to your grades, Miss Freshman, you're very talented in physics. You should go further in this field. You should probably major in physics. And so the advice would go, if the student were talented in chemistry or French or mathematics, or as Amber is in English and music and whatever else, and math and everything else Amber studied, okay? But in English composition, the advice is you're good at writing, so quit. I wonder why. I have been wondering why a long time. All high school students could write better, even the best. All college English teachers could write better, including this one. Some college English teachers, I must admit, write very poorly indeed. Perhaps they too got the wrong advice when they were freshmen. It is even possible that some of them should be taking English 1 and 2 for the first time instead of teaching it. Gladys Schmidt, one of our great American novelists, took English 1 and 2 and would be the first to say those courses had value. A few years ago, Peter Beagle took English 1 and 2, and he did not complain, and yet he was good enough to write almost all of his fine first novel before he even finished undergraduate school here at Pitt. Why, when students are good at writing, are they told to take no more writing? Amen, I agree. Write, folks, write. Write love letters, write poems, write emails, write term papers, write. That is such an important skill. Why is it such an important skill? Because, come here, how you doing? Because to become a good writer, you must first become a good thinker. You know, what is it that I really want, before you put that pen to paper or touch that keyboard, what do I really want to say? From right here, what do I want to say? And then, how am I going to say it? What words am I going to use? What images am I going to use? Etc. And then, after you've thought it through, then put the paper to pencil, pencil to paper. In notion number 3, in measuring the student as a whole, grades seem less important than educators say they are. I'm always a little suspicious of the straight A student. I'm also a little suspicious of the straight A student in English or fine arts who cannot catch a baseball. And y'all seen it? Where'd the bad finger go?
Fingers.
Y'all seen her finger? All right, broken finger playing ball. Right? Or a fine arts student who cannot catch a baseball and who is contemptuous of the boy who has muscle and courage enough to be on our wrestling team. A Phi Beta Kappa who says, "Who's he?" when someone mentions Roberto Clemente is not, I suspect, a whole person. Roberto Clemente, okay, this is a professor from Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh Panthers. Roberto Clemente was a superstar baseball player for the Pittsburgh Pirates when they won the World Series, and then a very beloved athlete in America, very humble, big contrast to some of our athletes today. And right after the World Series, he was flying home to Dominican Republic to minister to his country people back home. He was from Dominican Republic, and he was killed in a plane crash, age 29, ultimate baseball hero in America, great guy. Grades do not measure integrity, endurance, manual dexterity, graciousness, truthfulness, or having a profound attitude toward man's duty in a confusing world. Some C students have these human and honorable virtues in greater abundance than the honor student. And some honor students admit they got that way by frequent glances at a neighboring student's paper. There is much to be said for the C student. In many instances, he or she is vastly underrated as a human being. And the B student is often a better bet to give something important to humanity than the A student. At Harvard, FDR elected president 4 times in a row. You can't even do that anymore, right? 16 years in a row elected president. He was not a Phi Beta Kappa, and Ernest Hemingway never was graduated from college. Ernest Hemingway never was graduated from college. That's very good English, right? We say it wrong all the time. You don't graduate from Virginia Tech. And yet everybody says for the rest of their life, I graduated from Virginia Tech. No, Virginia Tech graduates you. So if you really want to speak good English, you should always say, I was graduated from Virginia Tech. And nobody says it right, except this guy. For that matter, neither was Tennyson, nor Rossetti, nor Browning, nor Swinburne, though college students study their writing. They weren't graduated from college, right? It was Oscar Wilde who was graduated with honors, right? Committed suicide. Notion number 4. Why do, the point about grades, I deeply admire y'all. Honor students, amen. But I will suggest to you, I agree with this fella, there's a reason we don't put grades on people's tombstones, y'all. Think about that. Notion number 4. Why do college literature teachers so seldom write literature? The good chemistry professor, I am told, tries creatively to add something to chemistry. The physics teacher to physics. Could it be that the science teacher tries harder to be creative than the English teacher? I hope not. But after 40 years, I find that strange thoughts tumble around in my mind. That could also be a sign of senility. I'll drop the subject. Notion number 5. Every college in America should have a course called Quietness 1 and Quietness 2. It would meet for 1 hour on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The classroom would be a tiny cubicle large enough for only one student and either dimly lighted or completely dark. The student would not be permitted to take books or paper or pencil inside with him. For the full period, he would sit there and do a little thinking. There would be nothing to distract him. There would be nothing to distract him. He would be alone with himself and the things he had learned, and he might come to realize the relation of each course to the other. It would not be so good a class as the one Isaac Walton described when he wrote, quote, "We sit on cowslip banks, hear the birds sing, and possess ourselves in quietness." But if the student came even close to possessing herself in quietness, the class could be the most important one offered by the university. Come to think of it, Quietness 1 and 2 should be an 8-semester course. Notion number 6, I should not want a son or daughter of mine to rush through 4 years of college study in 3 years. We tend to glorify students who graduate early, right? Part of education, a vital part, involves reflection. A student must have time to think things over. It is easy to read Faulkner's great statement, quote, "I believe that man will not merely endure, he will prevail." One can do that in a second, but mere reading is not enough. The serious student wants, sure, come join us. How are you? I'm Mike. Yeah, thank you. The serious student wants time to think about Faulkner's great statement, to weigh it, to evaluate it, to turn it over and over and get in his mind until, if he accepts the statement as sound, it will become part of his life and character. To do so may take many hours of reflection and aloneness. It may take weeks. It may take a whole summer of contemplation. If the student instead merely rushes from one class to another and from one semester to another, he or she is not likely to be affected by Faulkner's great idea. It is also easy to read, quote, "I am part of all that I have met." Make sure I come back and talk about that page. I am part of all that I have met, okay? It is less easy to absorb the idea and to become part of it. Think about that, y'all. I am part of all that I have met. You are part of the life of every single human being you ever meet. That is a profound realization of how important you are. It is less easy to absorb the idea and to become part of it. Anyone can understand the superficial meaning of, quote, "and never lifted up a single stone," or, quote, "cover her face, mine eyes dazzle, she died young," or, quote, "sings hymns at heaven's gate." But to enter into their fullness and richness may take many solitary hours on a hilltop or many lonely walks on empty streets. College years are years for absorbing more than facts. They are years for growing into wisdom. Hang on to that word. Years when at least a few months every summer are spent not in formal classroom study, but in becoming part of all that they have met in and out of college. Notion number 7, once in a long while I have helped a student. Maybe I taught him to write a better sentence, or to recognize the difference between effect and affect, or to look with greater accuracy at the beautiful ginkgo trees on our campus, or to realize that his mother and father have problems just as he has, or to refrain from making gross generalizations unless he can support them with evidence. Sometimes the student says thank you at the end of the semester or a couple of years later in a letter or a Christmas card. Once in a while he brings his girlfriend to my office to show her off with pride. On rare occasions, he visits his teacher long after graduation, as Bill and Helen and Mary do even today. These are big rewards. Look at there. Megan, how are you?
Hi.
Ooh. These are big rewards. They help make life worth living. They help to restore whatever faith the professor may have lost in people. Amen. Teaching is a good job. Amen. Notion number 8. In my day as a student, we, quote, took teachers, not courses. Today, I think undergraduate students take courses regardless of the teacher. The student may be right in doing so. Perhaps the content of a course is more important than the professor's attitude toward it and toward other things. And yet I wonder, it seems to me that I remember very little information that my college courses taught me. Today I should find it difficult to translate a Latin paragraph, a Greek poem, or even, I fear, a passage from Beowulf. I cannot prove a geometrical theorem, nor could I quote accurately the second law of thermodynamics. But I remember very clearly my teacher of Greek, the world weariness of my old English professor, and the geometry professor who stared out the window one day and said, "Geometry is so right, it's a little like God." And the chastening fear that entered my mind when my physics professor explained the philosophical implications of the second law of thermodynamics, implications that altered many of my traditional religious concepts. Few teachers would have dared to interpret the fact or theorem as he did, and I am eternally grateful to him for doing so. Most of my courses and their content I have almost forgotten, but the few great personalities I knew as professors, I shall know always. I have a feeling that today, students, especially undergraduates, take courses rather than teachers. I hope I am wrong. Folks, there's fabulous teachers on this campus. Take some of their courses, whether it even sounds like an interesting subject or not, and watch it change your life. Notion number 9. The information presented in a course has little value unless it is so taught that it stirs up something in the student herself. Music, said Walt Whitman, is that which arises in me when reminded by the instruments. That is beyond cool. Music is that which arises in you when reminded by the instruments. That is beyond cool. Okay? I really beg you to do yourself a favor. Wikipedia, Webster's Dictionary, Google, look up the definition of the word education. It comes from the Latin root, educare. Anybody know what it means, Michelle? What does it mean? It means to draw out. Think about it. To draw out. Not just put in. One of the roles of a teacher, a professor, part of education is to put into your head facts and figures and ideas and theories and equations and concepts and all that. That's a very important part of the educational process. But the ultimate goal of education is for the teacher to then draw something out of you that she does not give you, that you already have it. It's a constituent part of your human nature. What is it? It gives a W.
Wisdom.
Wisdom. Thank you very much. Wisdom. That's the role of a teacher, is to help you realize the wisdom that lies inside of you. Just like music lies inside of you, the guitar doesn't give you music. The guitar sparks the rhythm that's already inside you. Just like education. That is so beautiful about you, in my opinion. Notion number 10. In an institution as large as the university, there are many complainers. There should be. I have done my own share of complaining, as my department head, dean, provost, and president will attest. Usually the university has listened courteously and done nothing about my profound recommendations. Probably the inaction was sensible. Certainly it inched me a little towards a much-needed humility. Just the same, the university has been good to me. It has been friendly and kind. It has given me freedom. It has permitted me to earn a reasonably good living. It has helped me, more importantly, to lead a satisfying life. I only hope that somewhere along the line, I have helped some of my students to find a few of the things that make life worth living. The good things that made Faulkner believe. that man will not merely endure, but will prevail. I made 15 copies if anybody would like a copy. That's his last lecture. You asked me for my last lecture. It's kind of artificial to do, but folks, I have been thinking about it. This past Saturday was November the 8th. 10 years ago, November the 8th, 2004, I had a heart attack walking right down that asphalt sidewalk outside of Hillcrest Hall. I parked behind here every morning and I was heading to Hutchison Hall and I had a heart attack. Obviously I survived, but I am very happy to be here still. And I have thought about the meaning of life more than once, like every day since then, even before then. So I have put some thought into last lecture. If I really was giving you my last lecture, I don't think I would say very much at all. Hopefully, the students who know me, I don't need to say much more. Hopefully, I hope and pray 12 times a day that my students know how much I love them and respect them, that you are beautiful and that you are sacred. And my legacy, I would hope, would be not that anyone would ever remember my name, but that 30 years from now, you would clearly remember that one bald-headed guy knew that you are beautiful and that you are sacred. So, love yourself. Please. Just like he does. See in yourself what he sees in his students at Pitt. If you will love yourself, then you, as you should, in my opinion, probably in your mom and dad's opinion, and the people who know you, right? If you will love yourself, then what else will happen? You will be more loving to other people, less quick to judge. If you love yourself, you will be a better listener. You will be more gentle in how we speak about each other. You will enjoy holding hands with children. You will make a difference in this world, beginning right here inside of yourself. How do you do that? Well, let me share with you one of my favorite quotes. This is T.S. Eliot. I don't even know if that's a man or a woman, but he's a great writer. Is T.S. Eliot a famous writer? Doesn't matter. Is that a woman or a man?
I believe it's a man.
Why do I think it's a woman? Maybe there's another very famous writer with a man's name who's a woman that I'm not thinking of. Okay, here's T.S. Eliot. It's a man, right? We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time. We shall not cease from exploration, and at the end of all of our exploring will be, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time. Why does that turn me on? It turns me on because, and tell me if you disagree, okay, but my life experience has been that there's basically two kinds of people, at least in America, in the Western world, right? There's lots of ways we can describe people, but here's a basic way to describe people. those who are searchers and questioners and experimenters and adventurers, and those who are not. Those who are content with what they were taught as children, religiously, what they were taught in the classroom. They don't question authority. They're not going to get in trouble as rebels pushing boundaries. They are, and I'm not being critical, I don't think, maybe a little bit, in my opinion. They're more accepting of the status quo. That's what I'm trying to describe, right? Eliot says, go for it. Question everything, but be careful. And this is a big concern of mine about universities. I encourage you to be a skeptic, but not a cynic. A skeptic, in my definition, these are my words, a skeptic is a person I'm trying to describe who questions everything. And when you tell a skeptic something, that skeptic is going to say, Paige, cool idea, now prove it to me. Give me some facts, give me some theories, give me some history, give me some equations, give me your experience, convince me that you're right. A skeptic wants to be convinced so that the knowledge then becomes your own. You're not just blindly accepting what grandma said or what your professor said, right? Okay? Skepticism to me is healthy. The non-skeptic who doesn't question anything, with all due respect, to me that's a very boring person, okay? Now they may go straight to heaven because they're not going to question the Pope, or they're not going to question a rabbi, or they're not going to question mom and dad. Blind obedience, okay? I come from the other school of thought that wonders how pleasing is it, if there is a God or gods, how pleasing is it to God if someone doesn't question their faith. They just accept that there is a God because somebody told them so when they were 4 years old, right? Maybe that's pleasing to God. I don't know. I don't think it is. I like Eliot's philosophy. Question everything. And oftentimes what we find out is it will lead you right back home. But then and only then is your mom and dad's wisdom now your wisdom. Because you experimented with life. But don't, and I'll talk more about that, but don't be a cynic. And universities are very good at producing cynics. Faculty, staff, and students. Particularly grad students, right? Perhaps you've heard the overly simplistic idea, but there is some truth in it, in my experience, that undergraduate school, the key to undergraduate school is answering the questions that the professor puts on the test, right? And graduate school is about questioning the answers. Relearning everything all over again, wide open, free-for-all debates and all that. Cool, right? That's great. As long as it produces skeptics, undergrad and grad, not cynics. A cynic is a person, in my opinion, my description, a cynic is a person who, to me, is sick. A cynic is a person who likes to find negativity, who likes to uncover a stone and find corruption and scandal, who likes it when they read in the paper that whatever, Bill Clinton and Monica had an affair, or some big shot stole money, or they just like to see people hurt, people fall from grace. We should be open to that, but if you rejoice in it, to me that is perverse. That is destructive of our commitment to living a social life. Why should we be happy at someone else's misfortune? Right? To me that's a cynic, and universities can very subtly and maybe even deliberately produce people who are cynical about the whole world. Here's another way to say what I'm trying to say. Question everything, right? And it may not lead you back home. It may lead you to be a very different person than from when you started. Cool, right? As long as it's an authentic search, right? Or it may lead you right back home. Either way, as long as it's an authentic search, the fruits will be there, right? But don't let the university should not graduate you, there's good English, we should not graduate you if all you know after 4 years is what you don't know, what you don't believe in. To me, and I may be a weirdo, to me we failed you. If a student walks across that stage now believing in nothing, there is no authority, there's nothing really worth pledging my allegiance to, the discipline of chemistry or the discipline of music or the discipline of math or philosophy, if I'm not loyal and allegiant to anything, we have failed you miserably. All we've done is help you become a cynic. So, in your searching, ask yourself, well, who am I really, and what do I believe? What do I want to be? Who do I want to be? But it's your decision. It's your journey. And I say to my students as frequently as I can, particularly those who are bombing my classes, oftentimes it's because they're just in a fuzzy state in life, you know, right? That happens to lots of people. I say, look, take ownership of your life. It's not your mom and dad's life. It's your life. In college years are a real time of transition, you know, leaving home, becoming a new adult and all that. Amen, amen. Well, that's the point. Take ownership of your life. I'm preaching to the choir here, great honor students, right? There's a lot of other students on this campus, and you know as well as I do, who lack your maturity and your hunger for knowledge and wisdom, right? So have I explained the difference between cynicism and skepticism? Okay. Yeah. Find out what you believe and let it be your belief, not what anyone else told you. Your belief. And then run with it. It may lead you right back home, or it may lead you to a whole new identification. Cool.
You want to remind me about being part of like other people's lives?
Yes. My last lecture would not be behind a podium. None of my lectures are behind a podium. My last lecture, the thing I would want to do would be to touch every one of you. Do you feel it? I am part of all that I have met. I have written an autobiography. I was privileged to teach for UVA twice in their semester at C program. We took 700 students from 40 different universities around the world, literally around the world, 4-month voyage, 5 days each in 10 different countries. And at night, all by myself in my little cabin, I wrote my autobiography. And the title of it is Privilege. It's an enormous privilege to be a part of your life and education. And that is the very first sentence I have always said at the beginning of every semester. I thank the students for letting me be a part. That it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of your college experience. How cool is that, right? I get paid to hang around with y'all and to watch y'all come alive. So in closing, I just want to encourage you folks, step outside of your own backyard. See beyond the color of your own skin. Dance to the beat of different drums. Rejoice in the richness of other cultures. Stretch your comfort zone in challenging places and see the face of God in children's faces. Thank you.
Guys, thanks so much for coming, and thank you so much, Mike, for coming as well. So please stick around.